There's something about a genocide which targets everybody.
It's almost impossible to believe that people were ever treated this way.
I think I made the connection listening to a testimony of someone talking about how they were called horrible, mean names in school, and then today, 70 years later, hearing those same stories. So we aren't learning. So we have an extensive collection on the Holocaust. It was our first collection after Steven Spielberg filmed Schindler's List. In Poland, outside the gates of Auschwitz, he was having survivors come to him saying, "Please tell my story."
And he launched a big campaign to collect as many testimonies as possible. So 10,000 volunteers, countries, 32 languages, and collected the current collections.
And now they've branched out to include new collections to cover other genocides.
And a lot of universities are still subscribing and using all of our testimonies. And as we add testimonies, they benefit from the new collections, Nanjing and the Rwandan, and we're working on Armenia and Cambodia and a couple other collections.
I was an interviewer for the Shoah Foundation for several years. You know, some people think that Anne Frank summarizes the Shoah, but she's not the Holocaust to me. Livia Bitten-Jackson is.
So my mother said, we'd never imported anything, ever. We buy everything locally. Says, no, this is English wool, you imported it. So they would arrest my father for that. And they would take him away and we wouldn't know where he was. And sometimes for days he was interrogated by the Hungarian military police. They would put their feet into a bowl of hot water. He would have to keep his feet in there until the soles of his foot would become very tender. And then they would take whips and start whipping him. And the soles of his foot they would whip, and they would say, reveal spies, there's spies among you. Who is a spy in town?
There's so much denial, and even if you're not a vicious Holocaust denier and doing it deliberately, it's almost impossible to believe that there were people who could do these things to other people. And even in the Jewish community, there's so much misinformation. I had a rabbi say to me once, you know, Martha, they all went like sheep to the slaughter. So I think it's extremely important to hear from the survivors themselves. And luckily we have this here in the Shoah Foundation, even though we don't have most of these people anymore.
The Shoah Foundation is doing this in a way that they can share not only here at USC, but around the world. Because around the world, over 50 universities and institutions can actually go online and see these interviews for themselves.
When students and just general public watch these testimonies, they're affected. They stop using slurs, they stop using stereotypes, and they treat each other with more tolerance and respect.
Genocide is the worst thing that can be imagined. We've got to do something to prevent it, and the only thing that we can do, if that's controllable, is to educate people.
Please listen to the survivors. If you know someone who's still here, ask them questions, talk to them if they're willing, or use a facility like the Shoah Foundation.
I think that survivors and eyewitnesses of genocide and other human rights atrocities, I think that they're a special category of people because not only have they experienced something which is traumatic, yes they have, they are also eyewitnesses of history, and it's important for us to respect that and in some way record it in a way that we can share.